The happiness set points like a thermostat, right? We've got set points for all sorts of things. You can turn it up and down like a thermostat. That's why when people have really awesome experiences, even when people win the lottery, about a year later, they return back to their general state of happiness.
Hello, and welcome to this Radiant Woman podcast episode with Helena Weideman. And I'm really happy to have Helena here. Welcome, Helena.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
I'll just introduce you and then we just go right into it. So Helena is the founder of the Heartfelt Happiness. I really like it, everything to do with the heart. I talk about heart melt and intimacy. So this is in tune with what I do. And so she actually came from corporate environment. I used to be a chartered accountant, and you worked in organizational development. And then she discovered her true calling after really sounds like being a bit of a struggle with your neurodiverse kid, and you relocated to New Zealand and you lost your job and now doing the Happy for No Reason program. And so now Helena is dedicated to empowering individuals to live happier lives. And that's what we're going to talk about. How can we actually have a happier life, and what does it actually mean? I wonder, Helena, what does it mean to actually be happy?
Oh, so what does it mean to be happy? So happy for no reason doesn't mean that you don't have all of your feelings. Like very often people think happiness and they think of like positivity, and you must always only be happy and think happy thoughts. And that's not what it is about. Happy people have all the feelings, the sadness, the anger, all of those. And it's quite important that you still feel all of your feelings. But when we're happy for no reason, it means that we have an overall, like a state of well-being that we return to as we face life's up and downs. We don't walk around with Pollyanna smiles all the time, but we have an overall state of well-being that we return to at any point in time. So one of the really important things that was discovered in the last 2-3 decades is that we also have a happiness set point. So the happiness set point is kind of like a thermostat, right?
Like as I talk about weight set point, and there's a happiness set point, there's a money set point. Yeah,
we've got set points for all sorts of things. We've apparently also got a financial set point, but we have a happiness set point. You can turn it up and down like a thermostat. That's why when people have really awesome experiences, even when people win the lottery, about a year later, they return back to their general state of happiness. And when we go through really hard experiences like loss, it's also about a year, and then we settle back in the same kind of a space. But now that's not the end of the story, because we can actually change it. We can
talk about it today. How actually can we raise our set points? And you know what I love you, Helena, you talk about, and I was teaching yesterday my women, and we talked about sex and kind of having sex, how we assume that we need to be happy all the time. But actually, it's not about being happy and joyful all the time. It's feeling all of your feelings and having it in your life, in your sexual life. But it's that sense of, and I wonder, because you talk about the sense of well-being, I talk about a sense of being open and bringing more love into the body. So I wonder, what's your definition of this overall well-being? Like, what does it actually mean in your own experience?
So it means that you take responsibility yourself for your well-being and your happiness. You're not expecting somebody out there to make you happy. You're not expecting your partner to make you happy. You are not expecting your job to make you happy. You're not expecting that when you get a better job, you're going to be happy. You're not expecting that when you get a better house, then you're going to be happy. Because very often when people are not happy in themselves in the first place, and they haven't worked on their own happiness, even when they get those things, the new car, the new job, the new house, the new whatever, they're still not happy because they haven't breathed their own happiness and they haven't taken responsibility for their own happiness. So true happiness is not, you're not waiting for the external to bring you happy for you. It's something that you've got to work on yourself. It's internal. You're bringing it in from yourself.
Well, and if you feel into that sense of well-being, like right now in yourself, like how would you describe it? What does it actually mean?
To actually, how does it feel, and how does it
feel for you? Yeah.
Yeah, so it means it's an overall state where I'm okay. I'm feeling all right. I am taking care of myself. I'm taking time for myself. If I face life's up and downs, I'm not scared of feeling my feelings. I feel them. It's all right. I know they're gonna pass. And I know that after that, I'm gonna be okay. And I know I can do something about it. I don't have to wait for somebody else to do it for me. I know I can realize, oh, I'm actually, maybe today I'm not feeling so great. So maybe let me listen to myself and understand what's going on. Where do I need to fill my cup a little bit?
So it's like that connection to yourself, and it's a state of flow, a state of where I'm actually flowing with my emotions. I'm feeling everything, but then I'm feeling empowered to shift my state and kind of checking in with myself what I need. And that sense of empowerment, I can do that for myself. I can ask for a hug, I can go for a walk, or whatever else I need.
Yeah, absolutely, 1000%. Like, happy for no reason means I'm responsible for my own happiness. Nobody else is responsible. And it happens in the little things in life, right? So happy for no reason, which is what I talk about and what I teach from, is based on a book which is called Happy for No Reason, which is written by Marcy Shimoff. And so part of the work she did is she went and she looked at what she calls the happy 100. So they 100 people who are really happy, living these awesome lives. And she identified what are those things that they bring into their life? What are the habits that they bring into their life that help them to feel happier? Because now let me go back a little bit. So why does she talk about the habits? So this happiness thermostat that I spoke about. So we've got this happiness thermostat. So the happiness thermostat is made up of a few things. 50% is genetics. So you've inherited it. It's in your genes. 10%, only 10% is your external circumstances. So the stuff that society very often tells us we've got to get that in order to be happy. Like you got to get, when you finish your qualification, when you get a better job, all of those things, it's only 10% of our happiness.
It's quite small, huh? It's like
it's really small.
It's almost irrelevant, huh?
40% is actually your habits, your thoughts, your beliefs. And so that's why it's in those little habits.
And so is the relationships, that's 10% as well? What about the relationships?
Relationships is part of your habits, your thoughts, and your beliefs that you can affect. Because your habits, your thoughts, and your beliefs you can change. And there's research around when you change your habits, your thoughts, and your beliefs, you can start to change how your genes are expressed. And you get that like in the field of epigenetics. So that is the other thing that's there also. But when we change our habits, our thoughts and beliefs, part of that is working our relationships. And that means, first of all, not just your romantic partner, but your overall relationship.
Let's talk about romantic. Like if we talk about romantic partners, like what is it? So tell us.
It means you've got to manage that. So you first of all have got to make good decisions about which kind of relationship you're in.
And if you're already in it, but if you're already in it,
if you're already in it, then you do the stuff that relationships take. You communicate, you set boundaries, you take care of, nourish yourself so that you can show up into this relationship with a full cup. So all of the things that you normally do for a relationships is a really big part of it. Communication is a really big part of it as well. Communication and boundaries.
And I say, right, if it still doesn't work and it doesn't make you happy, then it's not your party. That's actually, I sometimes think people need to break up more often, because quite often people stay in the relationships that are not satisfying, but we have this thing that we have to work through it and we have to stay together and make it work. And I can understand when kids are involved, but still, like when it's highly unsatisfying and we put out and we try and it doesn't work, then, well, we need to shift something.
Yeah, sometimes you got to make a decision about. So like we talk about an happiness, it's whether it's a thorn or a rose. Is it a weed in your life, or is it your roses and your gardenias that you have in your life? And sometimes you got to pull the weeds, eh?
Yeah.
Sometimes you pull the weeds. Some weeds you can't pull, but you can set boundaries around how you interact with those people, how often you see them, and
yeah. So I wonder if you can talk to us actually, how can we raise our happiness set point? Because that's an important piece, right?
Yeah, that's the important part. So how do we raise our happiness set point? We've got these habits. So there's 7 main areas of habits. So 7 main areas, kind of like a house. You got a foundation. You got 4 main pillars or corners of a house. There's a roof and there's a garden. So 7 main areas. The foundation is responsibility, as in I'm responsible for my happiness.
So that's the basis, huh?
That's the basis. That's your foundation. When we are thinking of ourselves as a victim, we can't be happy. You've got to take ownership of your own happiness in your own life.
We're so good with blaming. And yesterday I was working with my women. I've got this group, and it's like, we think we're not blaming, but actually it happens constantly, and it's so hard to get out of it. I was talking about what we were talking about, the sexual terms, right? But it's actually kind of like, oh, my partner is responsible for my pleasure. Like it's up to them to initiate sexual interaction, and it's like really giving that power away and losing that foundation, and then nothing works, huh?
No, as for anything in life, whether it's your intimacy, your happiness, anything, ultimately you're responsible. We're all responsible for ourselves. So responsibility is the one. Blaming and complaining is a big one. It's not going to take you anywhere.
What are the walls? So
the walls,
right?
We got four main pillars. It's the pillar of the mind.
Yeah.
And that's where you think thoughts that induce happiness, or if it's happiness robbing thoughts. And the mind is one that people are very often quite aware of, and they struggle with a lot. Because we live in society, we live in our minds so much. It's
like talking heads, that's what I...
Yeah, it's like this talking head thing. And there's just this constant, most people have quite a constant amount of quite negative talk. And our self-talk forms the basis of our self-esteem also. We actually have a negative bias in terms of our mental talk, and we have that for survival purposes. We were built for survival more than being happy. But there's things that we can do to change that. But I'll give a bit of an overview, and then we can dip into the actual things that we can do around that. Then you've got the pillar of the heart, which is one of my favorites. So happy people are forgiving, they're generous, they're grateful, they are not resentful, tight-fisted, and closed off. So they have open hearts.
And maybe just for listeners who are listening to the, not seeing the video, I would just put in our hand on our heart, and maybe we can just give just a moment to breathe into our heart. Yes. Feel the generosity of our heart. Yeah. And maybe who do I need to forgive? And maybe do I need to forgive myself for my choices? Yeah. Oh, that feels so good. I love putting my hand on my heart. It like shifts quite a bit, huh? It's like it's such a simple action.
It's such a simple action. You know that you actually release oxytocin when you put your hand on your heart.
Yeah. Oh,
we're automatically doing that.
Yeah.
You're able to do that. Yeah. And come back. I think we'll do an exercise around the hand on the heart. And then you've got the pillar of the body. When we nourish and move our body to increase our dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin, we're going to be happier, as opposed to when we are constantly stressed and running on cortisol and adrenaline.
So movement, it's kind of, food is important, but movement is hugely important. We have less and less movement, and then we're wondering why we're not happy.
Yes, both of those things. I think in the modern world, people are often not nourished. They're eating a lot, but they're not nourished with good, nutritious food. And then there's the movement also. And then there's the pillar of the soul. And the pillar of the soul is being connected to higher power, higher guidance, some sort of a spiritual connection. It doesn't have to be religious, different for different people, different things for different folks. And
power bigger than us. I feel like you go upwards, but it's here. I feel like it's being plugged into the universe, into the world.
Yeah, totally being plugged into the universe and in the world. And having practices around that also, so like meditation and all of those.
That's such an important piece, because yesterday again we were talking about soulful connections, and women were like, "Why? Why can't I have this soulful connection with my partner?" And what I said is that soulful connection is a practice. We can't expect it to just be there. It's actually a practice. We need to keep connecting to ourselves and then sharing with our partners. And if we stop the practice, it can't happen.
No, it cannot happen if you don't practice it. You've got to be specifically, you would want to do it. You've got to make something happen. The roof is about The roof of the house is about purpose, so living in purpose. So feeling that you're contributing to something in this world in some way. And this is one that I think also in the last few years, there's been a lot of talk about living into your purpose. But it's almost like, and it's great, it's wonderful, I'm happy that's happened. But there's also this expectation that it's going to be this awesome thing. And then you must also monetize it so that, you don't have to do your job, you just do your purpose work for your income. And it's got to be something really grand and big. We're not all here to end world hunger. Some of us are here to be good teachers or be
Just
really
what
good
parents
parents.
like, being a good mom is such an important, it's a huge thing to do even just for one human being, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely, 1000%. And those things could change throughout our life also. So you could have a phase where you're more focused on motherhood, and another phase where maybe you're doing something else, giving back to community or more with your partner or whatever else it is
I
that
love
you're
you
doing.
bringing it up because I get this feeling like we're like this so much into this purpose thing and big visioning, and we have these big visions, and then when we don't achieve it, we kind of constantly fall short. So it's almost like goes counterproductive.
Yeah,
How we feel about ourselves. It's kind of gets into this, I have to achieve and achieve and achieve.
yeah, yeah. And kind of sometimes you just have like the way that you earn your income like for some of us it might not be this grand wonderful thing. It's what we're doing because we've got to just make ends meet, and that's how this world operates. That's life. But if we have this idea that it should be this grand purpose, that's like creating a lot of
Stress,
resentment
huh?
and unhappiness for ourselves. When really how we decide to show up to work every day, whether we see it as this kind of like a grind, or if we choose to do our best we can and serve people as best we can in the job that we have, that's also a mindset thing. That's something that we can decide to do.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and the last one is the garden, and the garden is your relationships. So are you surrounded by the roses and the gardenias or the thorns? And how we manage those relationships. So that's kind of like a big picture around this whole.
Yeah.
I find it useful because it gives us a home to building.
So its foundation is responsibility, right? And everything is built on it. Because when I'm thinking about relationships, the garden, right? Quite often again, we start blaming, but it's actually you need the foundation first, that it's my responsibility. So blame has nothing to do with it. And then mind, body, spirit,
Heart,
and purpose. And the garden is the
and the
relationships.
garden and the relationships. Yeah.
A nice visual, huh?
It's a really nice visual. I love it.
Yeah.
And I mean, for anybody listening at this point, you can probably just sit and think, well, if I think of this house with the 7 areas, so responsibility, mind, heart, body, soul, purpose, and the garden. If you're thinking of yourself in your life at this stage, where do you think you're the weakest at this stage? Where do you need to bring more habits into your life, and which one is your strongest one?
And
For
money
me,
is not part of it, huh? It's like where there's this piece about, right? It's not even part of it, of that structure. It's the external piece.
yeah, yeah. And I find very often people will say it's the mind or the body. So we know responsibility is probably a hard one to take ownership of, because, blaming is so fun.
Well, it gives us a sense of some kind of power. It's kind of that it feels a bit, but it gives us a bit of power when we blame.
Yeah, it gives us
But
kind of
I
a
know fake power, but then we kind of lose power in that. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
wonder maybe if you can give us a bit of an experience, like with whatever one you choose, what can
Yeah.
people do to bring more happiness into
Yeah.
the career?
Let's do the heart. So I love the heart. It's one
Okay.
of my favorites. So heart practices that bring happiness are a lot of these things have been spoken a lot more about in recent years. So gratitude, having a gratitude practice. For us in our family, we do at the dinner table, we go around the table and everybody says what they're grateful for. So children who are exposed to a gratitude practice grow up to be happier adults. There's some actual statistics and research around that. Forgiveness. So you spoke about forgiveness. That's a really, really big one. If there's a shortcut to happiness, it's forgiveness. So who can you forgive in your life? Then this thing about the heart. So the heart, and I'll take us to a practice now. So the heart has an electromagnetic field. It's much bigger, like at least 10 times bigger than the electromagnetic field of the brain. So it's really, really, yeah. Our heart is stronger than, and it's the reason why, you know, sometimes you can feel the vibe of people, right? Even when you've been away, you can come into the house, you see your partner, you haven't even spoken a word, but you can feel the vibe, right? So it's because we have these electromagnetic fields that kind of bump into each other. At the HeartMath Institute, they do research around the heart, and we can go into something called heart rate coherence or heart rate incoherence. Heart rate coherence means that when they measure it, if it's on a graph, it's a nice, smooth, even line. And we experience heart rate coherence when we are in gratitude, when we are forgiving, when we are just open-hearted and feeling loving. So if we go into heart rate coherence for like 5 minutes, it's up to 6 hours of strengthening your immune system.
Wow.
Now the opposite, yeah, so it's pretty powerful. So the opposite is if we're frustrated, angry, even fear, it makes it incoherence. It's like a jaggedy line. And that does the flip side. So 5 minutes of incoherence, heart rate incoherence, puts us into about 6 hours of suppressed immune system.
That's quite a lot, huh?
That's quite a lot, right? It's quite a lot.
It's not just, and it's kind of what you're talking about, right? Because there's this kind of a new age, you would just all imagine it, right? But actually there's science now that actually shows how it affects us on a physical level. It's not just a woo-woo like thing that we make up.
It's not just woo-woo, it's actually measured with something called an M wave. So it's like a measurable electromagnetic field. So let's do an exercise to bring us into heart rate coherence. So it's kind of what you got into earlier with the hand on the heart. So we're just going to close our eyes and put your hand on your heart. You can put one or both hands on your heart. And as I said, the moment we put our hands on our heart, we start to release oxytocin, which is the love and the bonding hormone. And you're going to take some nice, deep, slow breaths. And while you're breathing, you're going to breathe directly into your heart and out of your heart. So breathing into your heart and breathing out of your heart. Breathing into your heart and breathing out of your heart. And I want you to start thinking of love. So you can think of the word love, or you can think of somebody or some people that you love. It could even be a furry friend. And then you continue to breathe in and out of your heart. And you're going to think of compassion. So think maybe of when you've needed to show somebody compassion. And then we're going to think of ease. And so ease may be walking on the beach. Maybe it's walking in a forest. Maybe it's lying in a nice warm bath. Take just a few more breaths in and out. And then when you're ready, you can start to slowly, slowly open your eyes.
It's so good.
You're looking pretty dreamy. How are you feeling?
It's like,
So that's what it feels like to be in heart rate coherence. That's what it feels like. And
And it doesn't take long, huh? That's the beauty of it, huh?
It doesn't take long.
Yeah.
But as with many of these things, the power comes in repetition.
Mm.
So if you do like in the morning and in the evening, every day, consistency is key. That's when you're going to see a difference. I do it when I just come into the kitchen and I switch on the kettle in the morning and I wait. So I just do this. So it's a way to remember.
Yeah. Yeah, the consistency. Yeah. And I have my practice in the morning, which is just so important to come back to myself and then feel plugged in. So then we go into the world in our full capacity, not just as a talking head.
Not just as a talking head, yes. Yeah. We want to move from the head to the heart a lot more.
Beautiful.
And even the head to the body.
So I wonder, Helena, what else do you feel like our listeners need to know?
Let's talk about the mind, because I think a lot of people struggle with this mind and the talking head and just all this negative talk and talk and talk and talk that goes on. So how many thoughts do we have about in a day? We have around 60,000 thoughts in a day. We have a negativity bias around that. So we have about 85 to 90% of our thoughts have a negative thought bias. So
90.
if you actually,
It's in 90.
Yeah, we have a very high negative thought bias. Yeah. So if you're there thinking, oh, it's only me and all my negative thoughts, no, you're not alone. We have that for survival purposes to scope out the environment so that we can spot the negative things and survive. But the good news is we can also start to focus our brain on the more positive and build the neural pathways for positivity and for happiness.
I wonder, Helena, before we go there, how it actually affects people when we focus on the negative. Like, what are the effects on us?
Oh, you feel awful. I mean, we don't feel happy. We just don't feel good. And it's not good for relationships, because then you're picking out all the negative stuff about the relationship instead of focusing on the positive. It's exhausting. It's not happiness inducing. It's the opposite of happiness inducing. Yeah, but
And not kind of being stressed our body as well. It's kind of quite stressful for the physical body, for the heart.
It's quite stressful. Yeah, it's exhausting. But another thing is that there's also been this industry where it's been, oh, think happy thoughts, don't think the negative thoughts, and so on and so on. And so what then happens is we start to catch ourselves having a negative thought and kind of go, oh, I mustn't have a negative thought, or freaking out about it. Or
what I call judging the judge, huh?
yeah, you can judge the judge, which is like, that's just adding another layer of pain into this whole mix.
Yeah.
It's not helping at all. So that's not the approach to kind of solve yourself when you
So what can people do?
You just notice it. So just pay attention to your thoughts and just kind of notice and kind of go, oh, okay, there goes that negative thought. And just let it pass by and just go, okay, well, what's next? And start to order some other positive thoughts to come up next. We can also start to focus on positive things around our life, everyday life, a lot more. So notice the things when you're out for your walk and you notice a really cute fluffy dog. You like notice it and you soak it up a little bit more. If you absorb it and you soak it up for at least 20 seconds, that helps to build the neural pathways for happiness. So just
that's kind of that appreciation of even little things and really appreciating and almost like celebrating kind of what you do, what actually works, what actually feels good, putting more attention on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's little things. It doesn't have to be this like wonderful grand thing that happens in our life. It could just be, you go for a walk and you see a really nice tree. Whatever. You come home and instead of noticing all the mess that everybody's made, somebody's made you a nice cup of tea, and choose to focus on that and appreciate
It's kind of a place of choice, a place of choice where we put our attention, knowing that as human animal, right, we kind of focus on the negative piece, but actually noticing it, and rather than judging ourselves for noticing that, right, doing that, actually, what's good here?
That's good, yeah, because what we put our attention on grows stronger. It grows stronger. That's just how life works.
Yeah, and I find it so good for the relationships, because if we start focusing, as you say, right, on what's not working, what's not right with the other person, what's not working with me, it kind of grows bigger. And then we start acting in a way that creates more negativity there. But actually, when I'm focusing on what's good about this person, what's good about me, what's good about this relationship, it kind of feels better and better. And then we act in a way that brings more goodness into the relationship.
Absolutely, 1000%. It's from relationships, and it's also, I mean, there's actual science around it, like your neural pathways. It's kind of like, when you walk on a forest path where people have walked very often, it opens up the path. And the ones that people haven't walked, it's a narrow path. So you're just walking that path a lot more, and it opens it up and it widens that pathway. So it's more likely that you're going to have more, you're going to notice more positive things.
Yeah. It's like what I did
And
I did once with my ex when I started to feel very negative towards him. I drew a stick figure and then I put all the good qualities on that. And every morning I would just look at it and start repeating it. And it was amazing how much it shifted our relationship. I just started to really paying attention, but I had to kind of really look at it and speak it and speak it and speak it. And with time, I started to see more goodness and it became much better.
Yeah, that's so true with a lot of things in our lives, for relationships and for everything else in our life. We just start to notice the positive things, and people notice when we notice the positive things, so they respond positive, and then you get a
People that are
virtuous
responsive.
cycle.
Yeah, yeah,
It becomes a virtuous cycle instead of a vicious cycle.
yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
Resentment is a happiness killer, eh?
Resentment and blame. Yeah.
The forgiveness. Yeah, the forgiveness for ourselves, and appreciation. So appreciation for me is also a big one. Often we are, so I mean, appreciating somebody else is one thing, and that's a really good thing. So appreciate the people in our lives a lot more, and let them know that we appreciate them, and specifically what we
Speak it out
appreciate.
loud, huh? That's an important piece.
Say it out loud. Yeah. Like when it's somebody's birthday, a nice one is an appreciation feast. When it's somebody's birthday, everybody in the family tells that person what you appreciate about them, but also what we appreciate about ourselves. I think we're very often so hard on ourselves. And probably if we ask, especially women,
Especially women.
too, but I mean, I can only speak as a woman.
That's 95%. Research shows 95% we're kind of really judgmental.
Yeah, we're very judgmental. If we ask everybody to make a list of 10 things you judge yourself for, you'd probably like whip that list out in no time. And then yeah, you'd write it out like no problem. But if it's write 10 things that you appreciate about yourself, how much harder is that? That's maybe something that everybody can do, is like just.
It's a good idea maybe for the listeners. Do this exercise. First, write a list of things that you judge yourself for, 10 things, and then what do you appreciate yourself for? And if you want to take it further, do 20. 20 the things you appreciate about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do it as like a little bit of an exercise, you and me. There's sentence completion. So it's a sentence completion. I want to give you 3 sentences. So something I have forgiven myself for, something I need to have more compassion for myself for, and something I appreciate about. You can have it about myself or about the person that you're talking to. So we're going to do this back and forth. So I would say, Tarisha, so something that I need to have more compassion for myself about is that I can't be a perfect mom all the time. And then you have
something I need to have more compassion for myself for is that, I mean, the perfect mom is a big one, but for that other one is that sometimes things take longer for me and I don't achieve as much as I thought I would.
That's such a big one for me also, like even right now. Something I have forgiven myself for is some of the ways I've been towards my husband in the past, where I was blaming him for things that the wheel then turned and I was in the same situation.
Something I have forgiven myself for is not being in Canada. It was my dream to be in Canada, and I chose to come to New Zealand for the children, to have children here, to be with my family because my mom and dad are here and my sister, and it's been a tough one. But actually now I'm more at peace with that. That's okay.
Awesome. So Tarisha, something I appreciate about you is you're very calm, grounded way of being and inviting, being like a calm, welcoming presence, grounded.
Thank you. Something I appreciate about you, Helena. I actually see your playfulness, warmth and playfulness. And I like the playfulness a bit, and I want to play with you a bit more.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So appreciation is one of the things you can do, like back and forth appreciation. I've had couples in my workshops that happen to just be couples who show up because it's not like for women, it's just open to anybody. And they just happen to be like couples who come in and we do this exercise. And it's just, I've had some couples where, oh my goodness, it's just been such a lovely bonding experience for them.
I think I'll start doing it with my couples because I work with couples. I'm a couple therapist. So actually it's nice, yeah, to do it at the beginning so we can shift the energy and start appreciating each other more. Okay, I'll do that. Okay. So I wonder, Helen, if right now you kind of feel into what would be the last words? What do you feel like our listeners need to know? What is the message you want to leave them with?
You know what? It's doable to be happier from whichever place that you're in. Because I got into this work because I'd actually been in the opposite of happy and actually got to a place of being quite depressed. Depressed is a serious state, and I would suggest get some external help as well in whatever form that may be for you, like a therapist, or I used a lot of holistic approaches, but that's what I prefer to do. Do your research around that. But don't underestimate the power of small things every day. When I find myself feeling just unhappy and not in a good space, very often I will then open my gratitude journal and I realize, oh, it's been like 5 days I haven't written in yet. So those small little things, just like you don't like exercise, you don't have to run a marathon. Just do some stretches in the morning. Just do some stretches in the morning.
Don't underestimate the power of small things. I love it. Thank you so much, Helena. Thank you so much for being here with us. And listeners, please comment, please share what resonates with you. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.